To understand how this place came to exist, you need to meet one man, Shiro Ishii. Born in 1892, brilliant, ambitious, a microbiologist with a talent for charming generals. In 1928, Ishii toured Europe and returned to Tokyo with an argument that would change history. The 1925 Geneva Protocol had banned biological weapons, and to Ishii, that ban was proof of their power. Why outlaw something unless it worked? In 1932, the army gave him a laboratory. By 1936, with Japan occupying Manchuria, he had something far bigger. Unit 731, officially the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. The name wasn't entirely a lie. They really did study disease: plague, anthrax, cholera, typhoid, frostbite. The problem was how they studied it. Ishii had a philosophy he repeated to new recruits. A doctor's mission is to cure disease. But the research they were about to do was the complete opposite, and he asked them to accept that contradiction as their duty to the empire. Thousands of them did. And the first prisoners, Chinese civilians, resistance fighters, Russians, Koreans, began arriving in sealed trains. Remember those trains. They become important later. Here is what makes Unit 731 different from every other atrocity of the war: the paperwork. These weren't frenzied killings. They were experiments, logged, measured, peer-reviewed. Prisoners were infected with plague and then studied, sometimes cut open while still alive, without anesthesia, because Ishii's doctors believed anesthesia would corrupt the data. In the Manchurian winter, where temperatures fell to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, prisoners were taken outside and researchers waited, listening, until frozen limbs made a sound one guard later compared to a wooden board being struck. All of it to study frostbite treatment for Japanese soldiers. There were pressure chambers, dehydration studies, weapons tests where prisoners were tied to stakes in a field as porcelain bombs filled with plague-infected fleas burst overhead. The staff went home to their families in a residential compound with a school and a swimming pool, a few hundred meters away. Ordinary evenings, ordinary dinners, and here's the question that has haunted historians ever since. How did thousands of trained physicians, men sworn to heal, participate in this for 9 years and then simply return to Japanese society? To answer that, we have to look at what they left behind. August 9th, 1945. The Soviet Union declares war on Japan and pours into Manchuria. At Pingfang, the order comes down: destroy everything. The prison blocks are emptied the only way the unit ever emptied them. Engineers pack the buildings with explosives, but brick walls a meter thick don't vanish easily. And neither does evidence. When Soviet and Chinese investigators reached the ruins, they found the twisted skeletons of laboratories and something worse: survivors of the surrounding villages already falling sick. Because in their retreat, the unit's staff had released thousands of plague-infected rats. Outbreaks swept the Harbin region for years afterward. Chinese researchers estimate roughly 30,000 people died after the war ended, killed by a facility that no longer existed. Then came the documents. In December 1949, the Soviets put 12 captured unit members on trial at Khabarovsk. The testimony was detailed, specific, damning. Vivisections described by the men who performed them. Major General Kiyoshi Kawashima admitted the unit could produce hundreds of kilograms of plague bacteria per month. The transcripts were published in multiple languages. And in the West? Almost total silence. Newspapers dismissed it as communist propaganda, which raises an obvious question. Where was Shiro Ishii? He wasn't at Khabarovsk. He wasn't hiding. He was home in Japan, and na sabadam didi awa. people knew exactly where. American occupation authorities found Ishii quickly. By early 1946, he was being questioned in Tokyo. The Soviets demanded he be handed over for trial. The evidence was overwhelming. His own subordinates were confessing. Everything pointed toward the gallows at the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal, where other Japanese leaders were being sentenced to death. And then, nothing happened. Ishii was not indicted. Neither were his officers. Unit 731 was never even mentioned at the Tokyo trials. The lead physicians quietly resumed their careers. Masaji Kitano, who had commanded the unit himself, went on to co-found the Green Cross Corporation, one of Japan's largest pharmaceutical companies. Others became university deans, presidents of medical associations, respected professors who trained the next generation of Japanese doctors. For decades, when survivors and journalists asked questions, they hit a wall of official denial. The Japanese government wouldn't confirm the unit had existed. The American government said nothing at all. It looked like the perfect erasure of a crime, until researchers in the 1980s started filing Freedom of Information requests in Washington. What they found in those declassified files rewrote the entire story. The declassified cables spelled it out in bureaucratic black and white. In 1947, American scientists from Camp Detrick, the U.S. Army's own biological warfare program in Maryland, flew to Japan and interviewed Ishii and his top researchers. What the Americans wanted was the data. 9 years of human experimentation had produced information that no ethical program could ever obtain, and the Cold War was beginning. The Soviets wanted that data too. One State War Navy cable from 1947 put it with chilling clarity. The value of the information to U.S. national security far outweighed the value of prosecution. The deal was struck under the authority of General Douglas MacArthur's Occupation Command. Immunity from war crimes, prosecution, in exchange for everything. Thousands of pages, slides, reports. The men of Unit 731 handed over the results, and the United States buried the crime. Shiro Ishii lived out his life quietly in Japan and died of throat cancer in 1959, aged 67, never arrested, never tried, never publicly questioned about a single death. The victims got no trial, no compensation, and for 40 years, not even acknowledgement. The darkest experiment in human history didn't end with justice. It ended with a filing cabinet. Today, part of the Pingfang site is a museum. Chinese and Japanese historians have spent decades recovering names, turning logs back into people, farmers, students, mothers, prisoners of war. In 2018, Japan's National Archives finally released an official document listing over 3,600 members of Unit 731 by name. The full American files, researchers believe, have still never been completely disclosed, and that leaves us with the question this story was always really about. The horror of Unit 731 was committed by doctors who told themselves the knowledge justified the suffering. Then the country that defeated them looked at the same knowledge and made the same calculation. So who bears the guilt? Only the men who held the scalpels, or also the men in clean offices an ocean away who decided the data was worth more than justice? There's no comfortable answer. Maybe that's the point. What do you think? Should the United States have prosecuted, even at the cost of losing that research to the Soviets? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more cases history tried to bury, you know what to do. If you thought this was unsettling, wait until you hear what happened with evidence that was deliberately destroyed in almost the exact same circumstances. That video is waiting for you right now. Don't forget to subscribe. We uncover a new dark secret every day.